I know what's coming in the rest of this email. I haven't even read it yet, but I know what you're going to say. And I guarantee you that your problem is hello and welcome to episode 468 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. You can be LSAT famous on either show. Share news and ask questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Find us on the socials at LSATdemon. This show airs on Monday, August 19th. That's 3 days before the Thursday, August 22nd, October LSAT registration deadline. Our philosophy is pretty simple. Just don't register until you're happy with your practice test scores. If you're happy with your practice test scores, go ahead and register. Simple as that. Go to lsat.link/dates if you would like to see all of the upcoming LSAT scores, release dates, all that stuff. We have an exciting opportunity, Ben. It's at the top of the agenda.
Okay.
Are you gonna take advantage? Why don't you read this? I got this email. I'm a UC Law San Francisco, or when I was there, it was called UC Hastings. I'm an alum of that school, graduated in 2011. And I still get these exciting offers from the school. Why don't you read this one, Ben?
Yeah, sir. Certainly. So this is, Dear UC Law SF alumni, remember that feeling of starting law school? The excitement, nerves, and anticipation. This moment for incoming 1Ls is a monumental step in their journey, and we want to ensure that our new students feel a sense of belonging and pride from day one. To help achieve this, we are offering incoming 1Ls a UC Law San Francisco sweatshirt during orientation. This small gesture can make a significant impact, fostering a sense of community and connection to the UC Law SF family. I really hate their name. It's just very hard to say.
The name is annoying. What do you think about the generous offer? Or would you like to read more about the offer?
Sure, I'll read more. We invite you to be a part of the 1L journey by sponsoring, and the sponsoring is hyperlinked, to sponsoring one or more sweatshirts for our incoming class. Your contribution will not only provide them with a warm and tangible reminder of their new home, but also help create a supportive environment as they embark on this transformative journey. So that's a word they really like. That's a word they used with you years ago to get you to go there. And they're still using it now.
Transformation.
Here are the sponsorship details. Cost per sponsorship is $40. Sponsorship level, you can choose to sponsor one or multiple students.
Oh, good, because one was not enough. I mean, I was thinking I was going to sponsor maybe, 100 seems like a good number.
Wow. If you're interested in sponsoring a student for their first sweatshirt, make your gift here. Your support will be instrumental in helping our students feel welcomed and excited about their time at UC Law San Francisco. Thank you for considering this opportunity to make your positive impact on the lives of our incoming students. We appreciate your continued commitment to our law school community! ! Wow. I don't know. It's just such an odd request. I mean, these schools are bringing in so much money. And they're like, hey, do you want to buy a sweatshirt for these kids?
We're about to charge these kids $40,000 in tuition at least. I mean, what is the let's we got to take a peek at that, don't we? I mean, I'm going to go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships because this is where we find out about the finances of all of this stuff. There it is. UC San Francisco. This school charges annual tuition of $55,200. That's what they charge you in just tuition. Let me do a little quick math. 55,200 divided by 40. Okay, so they charge you for 1,380 sweatshirts per year at this school. That's their tuition.
Wow.
So we're going to charge these kids for 1,380 of these every single year. And by the way, that's not counting, books and living expenses and sacrificed income and all that stuff.
Did you include fees? What are their fees?
Fees are zero, it says, according to this.
All right.
Yeah, that's nice. I guess they rolled it all in to the $55,000 of tuition.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it was a very generous offer. Sorry, sarcasm doesn't really work here. Eric asks us a question, Ben. Is there any scenario in which you can imagine yourself donating money to your law school? I found this particular plea extra insulting. I don't know why. It just seems extra insulting. It's like, would you like to pay money to us so that one of the students who's going to start school here can advertise
for us,
our school for us? It's like, I can see why they want to do it. It's like, from their perspective, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's like, they are constantly sending these emails, by the way. As an alumni of Hastings, I have gotten 0 emails that are actually trying to help me do anything with my career. I've gotten dozens or hundreds of emails now. In the, I graduated a long time ago. It was almost 15 years ago now that I graduated.
Yeah.
And I've gotten like hundreds or more emails from the school, just constantly begging for money. It's like all they do is just beg for money. Anyway, is there any scenario?
They call it a sponsorship. They call it whatever.
They call it whatever they want to call it, but it's just like that. They're always asking me for money to do various things because and they do it. They like try to convince me in a million different ways. Like, oh well, it's a great step. It's in your best interest to give us money
because it will promote the school, which will then increase the brand of the name on your resume.
Exactly. And I'm sure this shit must work or else they wouldn't do it. But there must be alums out there from Hastings who get these emails and they're like, oh yeah, that's so great. I can't wait to help sponsor a student. Like,
yeah. I mean, it must be students who they went to law school and they felt like law school changed their life and they just continually want to pay it back. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they are continually paying it back, by the way. The people who graduated with me, I'm sure most of them still have student loans. Like they're still paying back the tuition that they themselves got soaked for in 2008 through 2011. They still have those student loan payments. Anyway.
So to Eric's question, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where I would be donating money to my law school. There's so many things about law school, right? They charge an exorbitant amount of money for an education that is it seems like inexpensive to provide because all you have to do is show up to class.
Where the fuck does the money go?
Yeah.
I mean, once having been through law school, seeing what services were actually provided to me. I mean, you're going and sitting with 80 other people in a giant lecture hall for 14 hours a week for like a 14-week semester. 2 14-week semesters in the year, plus one final exam that you barely get any feedback on.
Yeah, you mainly get a grade.
And that's it. That's the only services that were provided to me.
Yeah.
There were nominally other services available, like career services, which you go to career services and it's like, yeah, sure, go look through those binders over there.
Yeah. 3-ring binder.
Thanks a lot. What they do is they pay their professors a lot of money. They pay their administrators a lot of money.
They go on.
They have a lot of them. Yeah. They pay admissions folk to constantly go out and sell their product. It costs them money to run this stupid fundraising campaign. That's why I get hundreds of emails from the Alumni Center.
Yeah.
They're not like actually helping me do anything. They had no interest. I was a brand new entrepreneur, by the way, coming right out of law school. They had no interest in helping me start my business. It was just like, huh? Oh, go look at those binders. There might be a couple people in there who have entrepreneurial. Yeah, you go talk to them maybe. You know, they're not like providing you with anything. And they hardly provide you with anything while you're even in school. I had TAs, like, to the extent that you have small groups, like, yeah, okay, you might have a seminar with a professor, but in your 1L legal writing and research, right? You're in a small group with a 2L TA.
Or a 3L or a 2L who's telling you all their wisdom and knowledge of how this works.
Oh, totally.
Experienced position of a 2L.
No, but I mean, I got by far more feedback from that one 2L TA that I had than I got from all other professors combined at the school.
Yeah.
They're not, you know, it's like you're in the big lecture with 80 other people, and yeah, you can ask your questions and stuff, but then you're not going to get really any feedback at all on the work that you do, your exams. You're getting a couple check marks and a grade, and that's it. You don't learn shit from that.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me. It's like, really? Okay, so you have 400 students paying $50,000 a year. I mean, that is heavily discounted by scholarships, which is why we're always yelling about don't pay for law school, and make sure that you're getting one of the better deals instead of getting ripped off and paying full price. But where does that money go? That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into facilities, I guess. You know, they just built a brand new skyscraper in downtown San Francisco. Otherwise, where's the money go?
I mean, it's also possible that some of that's being siphoned off by the university in general, right? They have money-making departments or divisions such as the law school.
You're talking about?
I don't know. Yeah. Well, that's true. It's a public school, right? But either way, like, I've heard that sometimes they have to then turn around and allocate that money to other more expensive programs.
Well, and I don't
like
think
sciences.
It works that way. With UC Law SF in particular, the reason why they're not called UC, the reason why their name is UC Law San Francisco is because there is a UC San Francisco medical school. And and they're not actually, like, they're weirdly kind of part of the UC system, but not actually part of the UC system. So I don't think that the funding from UC Law San Francisco actually goes into the general coffers. I get what you're saying, though, that like in some schools, the grad programs might be kind of helping to finance the undergrad programs.
Or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Or another grad program that has more expenses.
Right.
But
Yeah. I don't know. Legal education just it shouldn't require a lot of investment. It seems like give me a subscription to LexisNexis and Westlaw and then like have me do actual legal shit.
It gets even crazier when you think about things like Coursera, which charge people $40 a month for unlimited access to hundreds, thousands of courses. And law school is so unified that contracts is taught over and over and over again, right? It's an industry that's ripe for disruption because you just come in and you say, who's the best professor in the world on torts? Right. Teach it once and now record it, and bam, like we can offer that for hella cheap. And yeah. And can that also be my bar prep at the same time? Because why am I learning torts in this like abstracted way that's not connected to the tort law that's going to be on my actual bar exam? Yeah. You know, it's just wild because when, you know, so everybody knows, if you go to UC Law SF, you are not going to pass the California bar unless after graduation, you pay more money to a bar prep, Barbary, or one of those things, so that you can then prepare for the bar exam, which UC Law, getting your JD certifies you to sit for the California bar, but it does not actually prepare you for the California bar. Yes, necessary, but not sufficient.
And that's another thing, by the way, that the alumni office, we've laughed about this on the podcast before, but the alumni office has invited me generously to, it's an opportunity, Ben, to sponsor a new graduate to do their bar prep.
Yeah.
It's like these graduates, before they go out into the world, they have one more important hurdle that they need to face. And we didn't prepare them for that over 3 years. So would you like to donate money to fund their bar prep? So because it's in your best interest, though, because then the bar passage rate of the school goes up And that raises the reputation of the school.
Yeah. So it's all good for you.
It's in my best interest. I don't know. Eventually, they're going to get wind of me dunking on their emails and they're going to unsubscribe me.
Yeah.
But maybe not, because they're that clueless that they're not ever even going to find that out. They don't get, probably any publicity is good publicity. They're like, yeah, he talked about UC Law SF
We're
again.
in the news again. Yeah. It's like,
they get like a little spike in admissions interest every time we do this on the show. Oh, man. All right. Next item on our agenda today is from Mike. The subject is the Trinity: drilling, timed sections, and practice tests. Why don't you read this one for us, Ben?
Hey, Ben, Nathan, and Eric. Is it worth it to do practice tests and timed sections if I continue to struggle with level 4 to 5 questions when I drill? Whether it's logical reasoning or reading comprehension, I have this stubborn and possibly ignorant mindset that it's not worth it to practice with time restrictions until I get better at the harder questions and passages. Thank you guys for the pods, the demon, and funny/exaggerated explanations. All of those have helped me tremendously.
Thanks, Mike. That's nice. My answer is yes. I don't care if you do a full practice test, but I think you should be doing timed sections pretty much right away. The deal with timed sections is that you have to learn to ignore the clock. So that lesson you can learn before you're good at level 4 and level 5 questions. I mean, the lesson that you're gonna learn if you do it the right way is, hey, there's a hell of a lot of level 1, level 2, level 3 questions that are in the first 5 and the first 10 and the first 15 questions on each section. And I can score pretty high by just getting paid for those questions. If I just figure out those questions and don't worry about, because there are more level 4, level 5 questions that happen at the end of the section. I taught Double Black Diamond yesterday, Ben. That's our expert level logical reasoning class that I do at the Demon. And there were some doozies of like question number 24, at level 5 difficulty. And my tip for Mike is you're never going to even see those questions if you do timed sections the right way, because what you're going to do is you're going to start the clock. You're going to turn off the clock so that you can ignore it. The clock's still ticking in the background, but you just turn it off. And then you work on question number 1. And you take your time with it, you solve it, you feel good about your answer, you move on to number 2. You keep doing that. Eventually you run out of time. Almost all the questions that you're going to encounter at the beginning are just going to be easy questions and you're going to get them all right. And that's a really important lesson to learn. Like, oh shit, I can get like 15 points in this section without ever even doing question number 18, 19, and beyond. I just make sure that I get the early ones, the easier ones. I just get those ones right. So it's not about managing your time. It's not about learning to go fast or trying to finish the section in 35 minutes. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. Don't do any of that, but do time yourself so that you can learn not to do that shit. Anything you want to add?
No, I agree with that.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
This next one's from Anonymous. The subject is losing focus.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I've been listening to your podcast while I prep for the LSAT. I'm an incoming junior in undergrad and have been using the summer to start my LSAT journey. I plan on taking the LSAT next summer to apply in September. I'm having problems with focusing during sections, and I find that I will randomly be very focused on one entire section and have a drastic change in my focus for the next section. I've been testing in the 159 to 162 range as of late, having started with a diagnostic of 144 in May. Okay, so we're already looking at a 15 to 17 point 15 to 18 point improvement in just a couple of months.
Yeah.
However, during my most recent attempt, I went down to 150 with a drastic contrast of minus 16 in my first LR section, during which I had trouble getting into the groove, and minus 5 in my second LR section with an accuracy score of 83%. Ooh, I'm going to put a little pin in that. During the second section, it was much easier to get into a groove as opposed to the first and third sections, during which I felt far removed from the content. Is there anything I can do to ensure I have the same focus on every section? What do you think, Ben?
My first reaction is don't focus on the section as a whole. Always focus on the sentence that you're working on. It's not about like, oh, did I focus during this section? Oh, I'm not focusing in this section. It's what am I doing right now? If you're not focusing on the sentence you're working on, that's okay. Take a deep breath, come back, and just try to understand the sentence you're on. Because if you really are focused on the sentence that you're working on, then that means you'll be thinking about what that sentence means, which will help you answer the question. But it also necessarily means that you won't be thinking about other things. That's my main tip. Just keep coming back to what you're doing right now. That gets rid of everything else. Oh, do I need to finish this section in time? No, you don't. Do I need to worry about whether or not I'm going to finish this test or this section? Or, it's always, who cares what's happened in the past?
Right.
Right now, you have a sentence in front of you. Let's come back to that.
Right.
Even if you have to do that multiple times a section.
So Ben wants Anonymous to zoom in and just pay attention to the sentence that you're reading right now.
Yeah.
I would also suggest that maybe Anonymous can zoom out here and consider that if you started with a 144 in May and now you're up into the high 150s, low 160s, a single practice test of 150 is just not that big of a deal. This is well within the range of normal variation for every LSAT student. The truth, Anonymous, is that you're not that good at the LSAT yet. You have gotten a lot better than where you were when you started. 144 is a perfectly fine diagnostic, but you're making tons of mistakes at that level. You've learned that if you make fewer mistakes, you can start getting paid for the work you're doing, and you've gotten it all the way up, cracking the 160s. But people who max out in the low 160s, there's a lot of stuff that you're not really understanding. There's a lot of stuff that you don't get. You're half-assing a lot of the questions. You don't realize it, but you're just kind of guessing a lot instead of solving those questions. And I wanted to point out specifically, the section that Anonymous holds out as this is my good section is a -5 with an accuracy score of 83%.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very good. 83% accuracy is not very good.
Yeah, you should be doing fewer questions and bringing that
Exactly
accuracy up. Even if that means you get -10, fine. So what? How many did you get wrong of the ones you did? That's what really matters.
Right. When I look at that performance, like if you had just told me, hey, I just did one LR section and I did pretty well. I got -5 on the section with an accuracy score of 83%. I would be like, okay, that's okay. I mean, that's not bad. It's certainly better than where you started, but you can do better than that. So my tip for Anonymous is that you really need to, I guess I'll echo what Ben said about zooming in and just focusing on accuracy. Because right now, Anonymous, you are going to have a lot of variance because you're not really understanding everything you're reading. If 83% accuracy is good for you, then that means that you're missing 17% of the questions you've attempted. It also means that probably on another 17% of the questions that you've attempted, you've gotten that question right without really understanding. You didn't really solve it. You just kind of half-assed. So what you're doing, Anonymous, is you're not, in my estimation, and Ben, I've said this a lot on the show before. Feel free to push back if you think I'm full of shit, but I've always estimated that if you miss 4 questions in a section, there are probably another 4 questions that you got right without really getting it.
Oh, totally. 100%. Yeah.
Because it's multiple choice.
It's a rough average, but yeah, probably seems about right.
Roughly 1-to-1.
Yeah.
So I think that, Anonymous missed 17% of questions attempted, also got another 17% of questions attempted right just through guessing, or half guessing at least. So we're looking at over 1/3 of the questions attempted that weren't really solved. That's my estimation. Sometimes you get them right, sometimes you get them wrong. And it might be even a little worse than that because overall accuracy is even worse than 83%. So that 83% might indicate more luck than what it typically would, right? If you were always at 83% accuracy, then I'd be like, okay, so you're solving roughly 2/3 of the questions. And on 1/3, you're kind of narrowing it down to 2 and then picking one, right? But that's a good performance for anonymous. So that's like sort of best case. You're like 50-50 guessing on 1/3 of the questions that you attempted. And on the section where you got a minus 16, that indicates that you're like guessing on almost every question. Or I guess if you followed my math to its logical end, you would say that you're pretty much guessing on every question.
Mm-hmm.
At least half guessing. Like you're not really solving the questions. So the way to ensure focus on every section is to focus more on every question and every sentence within that question. Wrapping that up, you're doing too many questions. You need to slow down, do fewer questions, and get that accuracy score up over 90%.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, hey, if you're getting 5 wrong and you have 83% accuracy, that means you're very close to finishing, even if you didn't finish, which means you're doing way too many questions. You should not
Right.
be finishing. You shouldn't even care about this minus 16 and minus 5, actually. What you should be focusing on solely is 83%. Can you get that up to 95, 100?
And the way you focus on that is you focus on one question at a time. I
Yep.
mean, you don't improve your accuracy on the section as a whole without improving your accuracy on one question at a time.
Yep.
So, Anonymous, you've made a lot of progress. I'm glad you're listening to our podcast. I'm glad you're working hard on the LSAT. Your whole plan seems great here. I think that, you have a lot of potential and could probably crack the 170s eventually. With a diagnostic of 144, I think, yeah, work at it enough. I think you probably could get there.
Mm-hmm.
We see 20-point improvements all the time. 20, 25 points. It's not even rare anymore.
Yeah.
So you can do it, but the way you're going to get there is not by focusing on section strategies or overall test strategies or how do I reduce my variance or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, hey, these mistakes, that's some shit that you did not understand.
Yeah.
You picked a wrong answer. You also did not pick the correct answer. You made at least 2 mistakes when you missed that question. So every single one of those mistakes has multiple mistakes within it. Take those more seriously, learn from those mistakes, and you should see your accuracy go up. Next one is from Annabelle. Subject is sudden drop in progress.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. Thanks for taking my question. I've been studying consistently with the demon for 2.5 months now, and I've seen a 10-point increase from 156 diagnostic to 166. By the way, that's an extraordinary diagnostic score. It's not very common. So
Yeah,
nice
tip
work.
of the iceberg on improvement there. From a 156 diagnostic, it's like a slam dunk to get into the 170s. I'm shocked if somebody who starts at 156 doesn't make it into the 170s.
Yeah, totally. Annabelle continues, my goal score is as high as possible, high 170s, and I study for 2 hours a day, taking a time section and reviewing and then drilling. I had been seeing consistent progress where I've been able to finally complete the time sections, averaging -3 through -5.
I'm going to stop you right there. Annabelle, you're going about it in the wrong way. I appreciate your efforts, but your efforts are misguided. Trying to finish the section and feeling like that's a win, even though you're missing 3 to 5 questions, it's kind of a loss. You're doing something, but there's too much smoke and not enough fire. So you need to just get each question right and stop trying to finish the sections. I know what's coming in the rest of this email. I haven't even read it yet, but I know what you're going to say. And I guarantee you that your problem is you're doing too many questions. You're finishing the section as a goal. And the second finishing the section becomes a goal, you now are going to be compromising on accuracy. You're not going to really understand what you're reading. The test is going to start to seem scary and difficult because you're not understanding it, because you're going just a little bit too fast. Anyway, here's what happens when you try to finish the sections. Go ahead, Ben.
However, within a week, I've seen a big drop in my progress. In my last few time sections, I've been unable to finish, leaving 3 to 5 questions unanswered. And of the questions I did answer, I'm getting more incorrect. I got -10 on my last reading comp section and -8 on my last logical reasoning section.
Not surprised at all by that. I'm
Yeah.
surprised 0% by that.
Yeah.
If you think finishing and missing 3 to 5 is a win, then sorry, but you're going to have sections like this.
Mm-hmm.
You've decided that you've got 2 masters that you're trying to serve at the same time, the accuracy master and the speed master. But if you try to serve the speed master, it is only going to hurt your accuracy. And that's going to in turn slow you down again. See how it's like so obvious and so predictable that now all of a sudden Annabelle can't finish the sections. Well, why?
Yeah, because she's rushing and then missing small details, which then pile up into wrong questions, wrong answers.
All of a sudden she's like, none of the answers are any good, or there's multiple good answers.
Rereading the passage, rereading the answers.
Absolutely. And it's like, oh, really? All it was this one little tiny thing that you didn't read properly. If you would have not been rushing, you would have read it properly and you would have experienced this as an easy question. Instead, you're now experiencing it as a super hard question.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're getting frustrated. You're getting upset. Like your anxiety level is rising. Because at the same time, you're probably also thinking like, well, I'm taking too long on this question and I got to get to these other questions. I got to make sure that I finish the section. It's just a cascade failure.
Yeah, totally. She continues, I'm feeling really discouraged and confused since I was making such consistent progress. I haven't made any changes in my study habits and I use the ask button frequently. Do you have any advice for overcoming this sudden drop? Thanks, Annabelle. Yeah, so we've already said to slow down. Make it so that you are solving more of these on your own, even if that means you do fewer questions, which will require you to ask fewer questions of the ask team because you're going to get to the answer before you even get into review. I would also say that there's another problem here. She says, I'm feeling really discouraged and confused since I was making such consistent progress. People love consistent progress, right? They love to see their scores just go up. And you just have to recognize that your scores are going to go up and down. And so let go of that goal as well, right? People go into a test, they just got a 162 and now they need to get a 162 or higher. Otherwise they feel like shit. And you don't. What you need to do is do the best you can on the questions that you see in the test or the section. And then every mistake that you make, see it as an opportunity to learn more about the LSAT. And don't really worry about your score.
Nope. Your score will follow over time. Your speed will pick up over time. But the only way that you get there, or the most efficient way that you get there, is by just focusing on one question at a time, one sentence at a time, one word at a time. I promise you that the LSAT is easy, but only if you slow down. Thank you, Annabelle.
This next one is from Anonymous. The subject is, am I crazy? From an avid podcast subscriber.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I've been listening to your podcasts every day for around 5 months. Can you imagine hearing us every day?
I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. Anonymous says, I love it and I wish I would have begun sooner. All right, if you say so.
Yeah.
I'm a non-traditional student, 10 plus years out of undergrad, with a terminal doctorate degree in a healthcare field.
What does that mean?
It's like terminal cancer.
Yeah.
That's the
never
end of the road. That just means you can't go any further. I guess maybe there's docs and postdocs and other shit.
Okay.
This is the biggest doc you could get.
Okay, in this field. Got it.
In a healthcare field. I currently work a senior management job in healthcare compliance and policy. I love my job, and I get to work frequently with law firms, consultants, and hospital in-house counsel. The part of my job I find most engaging is the policy and legal work, and I've consistently wanted to pursue a law degree for years. I was between a Master of Legal Studies and a JD, but after research, I feel like it's either JD or nothing parentheses, no point in a Master of Legal Studies.
Yeah, that sounds right to me, although I don't know for sure. But
There's no point to most master's degrees, in
yeah,
my opinion.
yeah.
Cold diagnostic practice test in the spring was a 152. My undergrad GPA is a 3.6. I took your advice. I ignored any sense of urgency to rush or to apply this cycle. Great. Instead, I'm studying to take the LSAT when I'm ready with a goal to go to law school for free or near free. Everything sounds good so far, Ben. Any comments?
Uh, Nice diagnostic, 152.
Terrific applicant. 3.6
Yeah,
is not, Harvard, Stanford type of grades, but with a terminal doctorate degree in healthcare and senior policy work and everything, with the right LSAT, I think that this is a very attractive candidate for schools in the top 14 if that's the route you wanted to go. It's a slam dunk full ride at many regional schools. That's based on LSAT potential alone, right?
yeah.
Like even without the doctorate, even without all the work experience, a 3.6 on a 170 is multiple full ride offers from schools across the country. Anonymous continues. My question: I make over $200,000 a year, but I still want to do law school part time. Let's assume best case scenario, I go for free or close to it. Am I still crazy for going down this path? Thank you in advance, Anonymous. What do you think, Ben?
This is a question that's a little hard to answer. I mean, you have a great salary, you love your job. That part made me pause for a second. Like, why would you want to change this? It's possible that you go over to the legal policy side and you find that just doing that is actually mindless and painful.
Pushing back
But
on that a little bit, Anonymous said specifically, the part of my job I find most engaging is the policy and legal work. So I agree with you that once if Anonymous actually shifts roles or shifts departments or whatever, they might find out that it's not what they thought it was. And that, the like part-time engagement or engagement from afar is actually better than
yeah, yeah.
being in it every day. But they have some experience. Seems like they have some idea of what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so we don't know for sure, but I guess I don't think it's that crazy if you're willing to pursue the part-time option
Yeah.
and keep
Don't
your
leave your
job.
job. Don't
Yeah,
leave
keep your job and pursue the part-time option because you can quit at any time and you're going to learn a lot as you go. So uh, as you do this and as you make connections and as you try to pursue legal opportunities that are consistent with what your current job is and
Yep.
what you're learning in school, you may see, hey, look, here's the path. Because right now the path is cloudy, but the path may get very clear and may become very obvious that you want to keep going, or it may become obvious that you don't, and then you just stop. And that's why it's so important to go for free or almost free.
Yeah, this is an example of a student that I would say, you could actually just go part-time, get a scholarship, hopefully. Scholarships for part-time programs are a little different
They're a little
from
harder to
scholarships
come
for
by.
full-time. Yeah, I think in most cases it's a little harder to get funding for part-time JDs, but not impossible. You can look at their 509 reports to see specifically whether they give scholarships to part-time students. Why would it be crazy? I mean, you're learning something. I guess if I had to be devil's advocate here, I would say, what's stopping you from just reading all of Wiki Law?
And then what does that
Well,
do?
what does a JD do? Like, you're keeping your job. I mean, do you want to like transition into a law? Like, do you want to practice law? Is that what you're saying? Because I'm not sure what Anonymous is saying here. Anonymous seems to be saying, I just want to get a JD, not really pay for it, keep my existing job. Well, okay, then why are you doing it? Are you doing it just for the love of learning? Because if you are doing it just for the love of learning, there's other ways that you could do this. In fact, you could probably take the same law lectures from better professors on Coursera or Yale or whatever. There's a lot of really open education that's out there in the world that you can just do for free.
Yeah.
Have you done that stuff? Like, could you just go ahead and take these classes, the same classes that you're going to take as a 1L? Could you just like start taking those classes now on your own time?
Totally. I guess I was assuming that Anonymous wanted to shift entirely into a JD required position, but
Right.
if
Because
not, then yeah, just learn it outside of law school. I would be struggling to see unless you could go for free and you
that's
could
kind of
do it
what I'm saying.
remotely.
Right. So can you go free and remote and part-time?
Yeah.
Or is there a law school right in your neighborhood and you can go to a class once in a while and feel good about it, put on
Mhm.
your law school sweatshirt and you're
Yeah.
getting a law school experience with your little backpack. I mean, is that what you're going to get out of it? And if you're going to really feel the vibes at the law school and all that, okay, fine. I'm fine with that. If that's your intention, then that's
Mhm.
fine. But yeah, if you're just looking to learn the law, I think there's lots of other ways that you can just learn the law yourself. Because essentially that's what you do in law school. I mean, yeah, you go to some lectures, but like you're going to have, a semester long class, you're going to have like 20 hours worth of, maybe a little more than that. I mean, I don't know, not that much. 20, 25 hours of classroom instruction and a shit ton of reading, like 3 or 4 times that in reading. Preparing for exams is going to just be you reading, making your notes and outlines and all that type of stuff. So it really is like kind of a self-taught profession anyway. I guess maybe my question would be specifically, Anonymous, what do you think you're going to learn in law school that you can't learn outside of law school? Or specifically, what do you think you're going to get out of law school? And if it is, I want to practice law, then what kind of law do you really want to practice? Like, is
Mhm.
this now I'd start asking you more pointed questions like, okay, so are you going to transition into a job that's going to make you more than $200,000 a year? And are you going to like that job better? Or are you going to totally hate that job?
Yeah, you could do some more interviewing of those attorneys that you work with and say, okay, how much, what do you make? What are my chances of
Yeah.
making
What
that
do they
much?
think? I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the path is here. I'm not sure if this is like, oh, no, I work at Kaiser Permanente. And if I get a JD, I instantly get a $50,000 raise,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or there's a specific job that I want to get that I can transition into, but I really have to have a JD to do that, or in-house counsel or whatever else. Like there are attractive job opportunities that I want specifically, then okay, fine. Like, great, do it. But none of that's in this email. So it makes me think that it's just kind of this half-baked, like, oh, well, I like the law. I've always, how about this? There was one phrase that I caught. I've consistently wanted to pursue a law degree for years. That makes me just kind of go, okay, why? For what purpose?
Hmm.
Because if it's just like a dream, like a childhood dream sort of a thing, and those are the stories that we get really suspicious of, right? It's
Sure.
like, oh, okay, but do you
It's
know lawyers and do you?
it's based on a misunderstanding of what's really
Right.
it's going to be like. And that was my
Yeah.
initial concern too, because even when you work with attorneys and you're dealing with what they're bringing to you, you're not necessarily seeing all of the drudgery that went in to get to that
Mm-mm.
point. And so
Mm-mm.
maybe you love the end result, but you don't like creating the end result.
Right.
Who knows? Who
Yeah. That
knows?
would be my
Yeah.
suspicion. Anyway, some food for thought there. Hey, thank you, Anonymous, for subscribing to our podcast. If you would like to do me and Ben a favor, just hit the subscribe button, please. It matters a lot. Next episode, at the top of the show, we're going to report back to you on our current subscriber ratio. I don't have that number in front of me right now, but I want that subscriber ratio to go up. Lots of people listen to the show without ever subscribing. Just hitting the subscribe button helps all the algorithms realize that we offer useful shit. So if you're not already subscribed on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or whatever, just hit the subscribe button, please.
Yeah, please do. Imagine, I mean, what is our mission, right? Our mission is to help people recognize how misleading law
Yeah.
school pricing is. And there
Yep.
is a world of difference between people who have never heard of the podcast or this idea
Yep.
and those who have. And it's really, there's a chasm, but is that the right word? Chasm?
Yeah.
There's this huge divide between those who understand how the game is being played and those who don't. And if this podcast is starting to help you recognize that and you appreciate it on any level, please subscribe so that we can help others recognize the same thing.
Totally. All right. Next email is from Angelina. Subject says weight of GPA compared to LSAT.
I'm 23 years old with a bachelor's and a master's degree in criminology. I got a 3.99 in undergrad and a 3.96 in my master's, both from a prestigious university. I understand that these are nearly perfect GPAs, but I'm worried my LSAT will absolutely kill my application. How much do you think GPAs can save me? I'm an awful test taker and just began studying.
Go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships and play with your 3.99 undergraduate GPA, which is fantastic, and various LSAT scores so that you can see how big of a difference LSAT scores make to the kinds of offers that you're going to receive from every ABA accredited school. It's all in one handy dandy calculator. Again, lsatdemon.com/scholarships.
Also, wake up every morning and start telling yourself that you are a good test taker. There's no reason you can't become a great test taker on the LSAT through studying. You just had some bad experience with some tests in the past.
Right.
Let it go. So many people think this, and then they start studying for the test and they realize, oh, all it's asking me to do is read and understand some sentences and tell the test what must be or could be true based on those sentences. Right. And once you recognize that, you start to realize, oh, actually, I'm a good test taker. I just didn't prep in the right way for previous tests, or I had misconceptions about previous tests, or I wasn't prepared. That's all.
You've been doing tests wrong. Tests, like the LSAT at least, every single question is solvable. They all make sense on their face if you understand what they say. If you understand the facts, if you understand the argument that's being made, if they're making an argument, if you understand the question that they're asking you about those facts or about that argument, there's one answer that actually answers the question, and there are 4 answers that are conclusively wrong. You can solve each question. Stop trying to race the clock. Stop worrying about your scores. Just do one question at a time and solve it. You'll realize that you can do this. You can get the first 5 in a row right every single time. And once you can do that, you can start working on getting the first 10 in a row right every single time. Then you start working on the first 15 in a row. And at that point, if you can just get the first 15 in a row right out of 25, I think Angelina's already getting full ride scholarship offers from some law schools.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Guessing randomly on 40% of the questions, she's still going to get full rides from some schools because her grades are that good, and because you don't understand how good it is to get the first 15 right and then guess on the remaining 10. What's your score going to be, Ben? It's like close to 160, I think.
Yeah.
You're going to get 17 right per section. But wait, I only attempted 15. I know, it's a multiple choice test. You do the first 15 right, and you guess on the remaining 10, you get 2 of those guesses right on average, and you end up with 17 points in the section, even though you only attempted 15 questions. You took your time with them. Oh, by the way, those are the easy ones. The easy ones appear at the beginning of each section. So what I'm telling you, Angelina, is that you can do this despite your perceived bad test taker status. I agree.
Don't settle for that. You have a 3.99. Right. You obviously have the discipline to just keep figuring this out until it becomes easy, and it will become easy.
One question at a time. That's how it becomes easy. So just slow down. Don't worry about the time. You might never finish the sections. I don't care if you finish the sections. I care what your accuracy is on your questions that you attempted. And as we discussed earlier in the show, 83% is not good enough. I want 90, 95. I want 100% accuracy at the beginning of every section. How long of a streak can you build of correct answers at the beginning of each section? You're going to win the most important battle there, which is, this test makes sense. I can solve these questions. If I just take my time with it, I can get plenty of points.
Excellent.
Thank you, Angelina. And stop saying you're an awful test taker. You do have to clean up that self-talk.
All right, let's go into a few questions here on GPA addendums.
Oh boy. Okay. Keep them short and sweet.
Yeah.
Probably don't, don't overshare. Think about whether you even want to submit it at all. But okay. Douglas starts with greetings. I listen to your podcast regularly and have been working through the LSAT. The demon is the goat. I attend University of Washington, Seattle, and maintain a 3.72 GPA. I'm going to apply to law school soon, and I know in your podcast you have frequently said adding addendums to your law school application is not advisable. Well, it can be advisable, but you can also just muddy the waters a lot. You can risk oversharing. So I'm not saying don't do addendums. I'm just saying, what's the purpose of the addendum? Douglas continues, I've been going to school about 3/4 of the time while working 70 to 80 hours a week. And I believe my GPA would be even better without having to work so much. How do I address this in my law school application process? I intend to apply for the evening JD program at Georgetown. Is it important to admissions that I worked while going to school, or is it not? Any input would be greatly appreciated. Keep up the good work. Best, Douglas.
I want to say a few things. So first of all, Douglas, you say I attend the University of Washington, Seattle, and maintain a 3.72. And you're writing this because you're worried about your GPA addendum. I would be much more worried about your GPA before worrying about your addendum. So you're studying for the LSAT. You're working lots of hours, presumably right now. Can
70
you
to 80 hours a week.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Douglas works full time. I mean, Douglas works double time, probably in some fucking law firm that is just ripping Douglas off, would be my guess. Because how else are you working 70 to 80 hours a week?
Yeah.
Douglas is like a paralegal at some firm that doesn't respect him and is way overworking him, even though he's going to school 3/4 of the time and studying LSAT at the same time. Anyway, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Look at your situation. Let's question some of your assumptions. So one, do you need to study for the LSAT now? Our answer to that is no. You can always do that later. So can you stop studying for the LSAT so you can focus on your 3.72 and bring that up? Can you cut back on your hours, or maybe not this semester, but next semester, cut back on your classes so that you can have a better chance at getting a higher GPA?
Yeah.
Let's get the GPA up as high as you possibly can. Then let's get your LSAT score up as high as you possibly can. And then possibly write a short addendum. There's another assumption here too. I intend on applying for the evening JD program at Georgetown. It sounds like you're applying to one school.
Yeah.
Please apply broadly so that you have multiple choices.
Douglas has a job that he thinks he wants to keep, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
He's working at a firm or something, and they've told him that if he gets his JD, they'll be, keep him there. Well, we'd love to overwork you as an associate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I would be thinking, hey, let's apply broader than that. Let's just see what kinds of offers we get. And I agree 1,000% about you're doing too much at once, Douglas. Instead of thinking about an addendum that explains why you have bad grades, I would prefer an addendum that shows that you got nothing but 4.0s during your last few semesters. Because that's how you get people to anchor on the good stuff, is you just talk about the good stuff. If you
change the scoreboard,
right? It's just like, no, I have a 4.0. I know I have a 3.72. You don't even mention that. You just say, I have a 4.0 in the last 3 semesters, period. That's so much more powerful than, hey, I know my grades are bad, but it's only because I worked so much.
Yeah, and I might have to keep working during law school. So
yeah, also I'm applying to a part-time program. Think about that case. Yeah. My grades are only bad because I had to work so much. Please accept me to your part-time program while where I will obviously keep working. Yeah, that's not going to work, Douglas. I would, like everything Ben said, consider cutting down on your hours. Focus on getting your grades. You don't need to be studying LSAT right now. It sounds like you're trying to apply this cycle to only one school. That's a bad plan. Apply next cycle, or the cycle after that, or the cycle after that. Get your grades in line now. That's the thing that you can actually control. Then worry about your LSAT, then worry about applying. And maybe we write an addendum, but I'd much rather have an addendum that just points to your good grades in your last 3 semesters instead of pointing out a weakness in your application. Next one is also, it's another anonymous. Subject is failed high school grade takes my GPA from 50th percentile to 25th percentile. Should I write an addendum about my 3.85 LSAC GPA, but with that one shitty grade?
From high school. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. Huge fan of the show. Curious whether you'd write a GPA addendum for a 3.85 LSAC cumulative GPA that would otherwise be a 3.96. I took community college classes in high school and got 1 D. I retook the course, so the D hasn't been included in my GPA anywhere except LSAC until now. The rest of my record is strong. All A's at a top 15 university, summa cum laude, a prestigious award that HLS and YLS, Harvard Law School and Yale Law School, list on their entering class profiles every year.
Nice.
Wow. I'm taking the LSAT in September and October and plan to apply this cycle, assuming a score over 173. Will the upward grade trend be evident, or is an addendum warranted? My grades improved and I don't want to appear obsessive, but the 3.85 versus the 3.96 for one class I took at 15, okay, you were 15 years old, moves me from 50 to 25% at top schools. Yeah, it does. That's a big difference at the top schools. For addenda, you mentioned focusing on the positive. So should it include why my GPA is lower from the retaken class and how this was high school? How my university GPA is higher and more reflective of my potential? All of the above? I guess everything in the back of my mind, like all of this we can get into, but in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, is there any way to get rid of this grade?
Yeah, that's where I would start, because you can obviate this whole thing. You can just become a legitimate 3.96 if you can get the school to take that grade off your transcript. And we have heard students getting their school to do this for them. So
tell them the problem. Tell them that you can't get it off LSAC unless they remove it, and you've retaken it. And it's just hurting you so bad.
And don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
You know, like, be polite, be professional, but push back. If they say we can't do this, ask them why. If you can't get satisfaction from one department, try a different department.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go in person if you haven't considered doing that. You can do emails, you can do phone calls, you can go in person, you can ask multiple different people. It's as simple as you might roll in. I mean, who knows what actually happens at these schools, but you might roll into some registrar's office and there's an undergraduate who works in the registrar's office.
And they're like, delete.
They have the capability, miraculous. It's like, oh, it's a high school grade? Oh yeah, I can just make it so that doesn't even appear on your transcript. No problem. Next. You know, I don't know. That's probably pretty rare, but it's not inconceivable either. And we have heard people write us in and say that they got grades taken off of their official transcripts and therefore taken off of their LSAC UGPA. If you were going to write an addendum, I would definitely just point to that 3.96. Mm-hmm. I would say something along the lines of, my GPA would be a 3.96, but for this one class that I took at age 15 and got a D, I later retook it and got an A.
Yeah, I would say that, because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is a diamond in the rough. This person obviously shouldn't be judged by a grade they got when they were 15.
Don't rewrite the 3.85 though. Just write 3.96.
Yep,
right?
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Don't point to the bad grades. I guess you say a D, but you also say I was fucking 15.
Yeah, yep.
Maybe don't say fucking. But anyway, you get my point. Thank you, Anonymous. Next one. This is supposed to be me reading it, huh? Hardest decision of my life. Hi, Ben and Nate. After getting a full ride to a top 20 law school and moving across the country in June, I realized I have no interest in law. Hell yeah. I mean, good.
Good, yeah.
Good. It's so much better that you realize this now than a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. You have already won at life. That's great. What's your question? I had been feeling this way for a while, but it really hit after my first week of class. Oh, shit. Right. You moved across the country to start law school.
Mm.
They started already?
August? Wow.
Jesus.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Who knows?
Okay.
Okay. So they already started. I had no desire to do the long, boring reading. I feel you.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
No, a lot of people don't.
And most people don't. The only reason I went to law school is because I had no idea what I wanted to do and I wanted a good paying career.
Okay. You're being honest with yourself, which is great.
That is fantastic. I mean, it's a bad decision, but it sounds like you're realizing that it was a bad decision. My family had been really unsupportive of my decision to, my family has been really unsupportive of my decision to drop out. They say I have an incredible opportunity and that it's being wasted. They told me to just finish, and if I don't want to practice law, there are other things I can do with the degree. I don't agree with this reasoning, but I do feel dumb for wasting huge amounts of time and money trying to start up a law career that didn't pan out. I just have no desire to be a lawyer. Dealing with all the criticism and FOMO is killing me. Do you guys think I'm making a bad decision?
No, you're not making a bad decision. And it might help to go on YouTube and watch a couple informative videos on sunk costs so that you
Right.
get your mind wrapped around the idea that what happened in the past doesn't fucking matter. The only thing that matters is what you decide to do today. And look, these people, they have good intentions. They're trying to help you, but they're not realizing that they're encouraging you to make a decision that's going to walk you down a path that's going to just continue to get more and more miserable.
Yeah.
They don't have to wake up every day and go to a law firm and file papers and work until wee hours of the morning to try to satisfy their bosses. If this is not something you want to do now, you're not going to want to do it later. So stopping now is the best path. And it's the best way to create opportunity.
And law school takes 3 fucking years. You already don't like it in the first week of 1L? Drop out. That goes for everybody in every circumstance. I don't care. If you don't like it, don't do it. You're going to be wasting time. You're going to be, I get that you're not paying tuition because you have a full ride scholarship, but you probably are paying your own living expenses and not working and paying for things like books and fees and whatever. They have other ways of charging you money. And anyway, it's the opportunity cost of not doing something else that you could do with your time is great. 3 years, Ben. That's a lot of time. Assuming somebody lives to be 80 and assuming that they get to pick what they do from the time that they're like 20 to the time that they're 80, you have a 60-year life. You're going to spend 3 years of that? That's 5% of your life. Just in law school. And that's in pursuit of a job that you don't want. Your family is making a huge mistake. They're not going to be the ones that are sitting in the classes. They're not going to be the ones that are doing the boring ass reading, taking exams they don't care about. This is just a horrible decision. And I'm glad you dropped out early because it gets harder to make the dropout decision later in law school.
Yeah.
I was wrestling
with it.
Feel
invested, but.
Right. I made it through my first year without too much misery. And then my first semester of my second year, because I told myself the story like, well, but when I get to pick my own classes, then it'll be different then. 2L is going to be different because I get to pick my own classes. First semester at 2L, I picked all my own classes. I show up first week or two, hated them even more than I hated my 1L classes. I thought it was going to be one thing. It turned out to be something completely different.
Yeah.
And it was just like, fuck. Okay, so now I have the sunk cost of the year of law school that I did. And then the analysis becomes, well, you could get a JD right now for only 2/3 of the investment that a JD normally requires. And after 3 semesters, it's like, well, you could get a JD for just 3 more semesters of investment.
Yeah.
And after 2 years, well, you could get a JD for just 1/3 of what a JD normally costs in terms of time and money. And so it's harder and harder to drop out as you get closer and closer to graduation. I ended up graduating and just regretting it. I have a
Hmm.
totally useless JD. There's no point. I got nothing out of law school. I didn't learn anything interesting. I hated the readings. I skipped all the lectures. It was just a miserable experience. It was so stupid. It's like having one of those jobs where you're just watching the clock. If you're
I
watching the
wouldn't.
clock at your job, you got to
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah, you got to quit. I wouldn't say I got nothing out of law school. I felt like there were a lot of interesting insights into how government works, and cases were interesting, but was it worth that time and money? No fucking way. Right? Like,
Yeah.
so
If you are genuinely interested in that stuff, you could just read all day. There's nothing stopping you. You could read every court opinion.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what the reading's going to be.
And it would be a
Yeah.
lot more enjoyable because you'd just be reading to learn as opposed to reading with this devil on your shoulder telling you, okay, did you catch that
Is this going to be on
descent?
the exam? Is that going to be on the exam? Is this thing going to be on the exam?
Yeah.
Yeah. You made a great decision, Anonymous. And, your family, they're not the ones that are going to have to spend that time and effort to get an unnecessary JD. It's a dumb argument to say, oh, well, you can do anything with a JD because a JD certifies you to sit for the bar exam. That's what a JD is for.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for anything else. It's to give you admission into the magical world of law wizarding.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to be a law wizard, then there's way better, more productive uses of your time. Ready for word of the week?
Yeah, this is from Abigail, one of her tutoring sessions. Abigail is one of our OGs. She's been around for a long time. She is an expert in so many areas of LSAT Demon, but this is the question. It says, so I guess she was talking with one of her students. We talked about the difference between little and a little, also the difference between few and a few. Students confuse themselves when they interpret few or little to mean some instead of not many, not much.
Interesting. Yeah. I get what she's saying there. Context always matters so much on the LSAT. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that word mean? What's the singular definition of that word? It's
Mm-hmm.
what's the context? What were they talking about here? And
Mm-hmm.
especially if they say something like, only a few X are Y. They're not just telling you that some X are Y.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you only a few.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they just say a few, or if they say a little of something, they're meaning that to be diminutive. And so they're not telling you exactly how many. So it still is a version of some where it's like, well, I don't really know how many,
Mm-hmm.
but they are in certain contexts suggesting that this is a limited few.
Yeah. So when she's talking about this distinction between few and a few, I think an example could help. So maybe something like a sentence that says, few students go to the movies during law school versus a few students go to the movies during law school. Like one is suggesting not many go, the other is suggesting some go, but we don't know. So there's a little nuance there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we can boil it down to as simple as just, well, there's few and then there's a few.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, show it to me in context and then I'll tell you what it really means.
Yeah. Although you can hear the difference in between those two, right? Few students go to movies during law school. A few go to movies during law school. It's almost like a positive versus like a cap versus an idea. But even then, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know how many people that is. So
Yeah. Thank you for this note, Abigail. I agree that some real LSAT examples would be helpful so that we could see those in the context of an actual LSAT question. I'm sure you will encounter them. And if you do out there in listener world, you can always just tell us about it on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on the socials at LSAT Demon. If you have any other question about the way LSAT Demon works, you can talk to the best customer service team in the world. They are at help@lsatdemon.com. Check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 468 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.